What's good, everyone? Matt here from UK Nets fans, and I'm joined, as ever, by Aidan McConaughey and Cammy Anderson for another episode of BK to UK, the British Brooklyn Nets podcast. Today is Monday, the 22nd of November, and today we're going to chat about the potential trade rumblings of James Harden going to the Sixers, Clara Wu-Tsai hinting about Kyrie Irving coming back and joining the team, and some very welcome Nicholas Claxton injury news. If obviously and much more, make sure you're following us on Twitter and Instagram at UK Nets Fans, the pod itself on Twitter at BK2UK Pod, and check us out on YouTube where you can watch all of our episodes. But with that out of the way, let's get into it. The Nets are currently, as we're recording, 12-5, sitting second in the East. We're recording this just before the Cavs game. So if you are listening back to us, bear that in mind. But we're going to start with some, I was a little bit clickbaity with the top headline news there with Harden to the 76ers signing trade rumors. Lads, who wants to address these vicious rumors first?
Yeah, I'll have a go at it. But yeah, I mean, it's good to see that Daryl Morey's been enjoying the new career mode on NBA 2K, because that's the only place that a trade like this is going to happen. I mean, I think it's safe to say at this rate that Harden's virtually untradeable, and considering what the Nets gave up for him less than a year ago, I mean, let's face it, is there even a package that the Sixers could put together at the moment that wouldn't include Joel Embiid, that the Nets would even pick up the phone for? I don't think so. I mean, the Sixers had the opportunity to get Harden the same time as us, but they didn't want to give up Ben Simmons, Maxey and Matisse Thybulle as well. So, I mean, if they weren't willing to give up those guys less than a year ago, I mean, Simmons is obviously much more tradable now after the last 7 or 8 months that they've had with him. But if they're not willing to give up a package like that then they're certainly not going to give up a package good enough for us to even blink at now. And I know obviously Harden's not signed long term yet, and I don't think anyone's concerned at the moment until we hear otherwise. There's no point in getting concerned about that. As far as I'm aware, Harden's going to sign long term with the Nets regardless of what happens this year. So I don't see scenario at the moment where the Nets will be remotely interested in talking to the Sixers. I think it's going to end up that they're going to end up selling low on Ben Simmons. Let's face it, has his value ever been this low? No, I don't think so. So they'll end up getting something back, but it'll be a return nowhere near the standard of James Harden. So we can rest easy knowing that Sean Mark's a clever guy and Daryl Morey's clearly been smoking something funny.
I mean, yeah, seemingly a 30-man short list of players that they deem difference makers and players that they take for Ben Simmons. I mean, I could list 30 things that I'd really like, and there's probably just as much chance of them coming true as James Harden ended up at the Sixers. As Aidan said, we gave up a lot to get Harden. Harden, let's not forget, pretty much forced his way to Brooklyn. He's not going to have went through all that hassle to think, oh, yeah, we'll just pack my bags. He's playing with KD. You're not going to go and swap that to go and play with Joel Embiid. Like, Joel Embiid's a great player, but nobody's playing with possibly the best player in the league at the moment and one of the best players ever to go and play with Joel Embiid. It's a non-starter for me. Some of the other names that have been mentioned are kind of the ones you'd expect, kind of stars on other teams, but it's not something I think we should really concern ourselves with. Harden, of course, is out of contract at the end of the season, but I think we're all strongly of the belief that he's going nowhere and he will sign a long-term extension. We've obviously seen KD already do that and commit his future to Brooklyn, and I don't see why Harden's not going to do that. I don't think the Nets would be all that interested in Ben Simmons at the moment, especially if the Sixers are only wanting Harden in that kind of return. Obviously, Kyrie was kind of mentioned a few months ago with a possible Sixers trade. But as we're going to go on and talk about, we might actually see Kyrie back soon. So it's maybe not something even worth considering a Kyrie for Simmons trade.
Yeah, that was the thing. A couple of months, weeks, like time moves quickly in the NBA, but a couple of weeks ago, it was Simmons for Kyrie in a straight swap, which again was never going to happen. You alluded to it there, Cammy. Harden ain't going anywhere. It took a lot to get him here. He's poised to make an incredibly large amount of money when he does re-sign long-term next year. So I think this is just the price you pay when you're the biggest team in town and you're one of the contenders for the to bring it all home in the NBA. One of the best teams in the league. You just get linked to all this kind of stuff all the time. So just the price you pay for popularity, unfortunately, James Harden's not going anywhere. And I think as much as Ben Simmons has made himself, has almost blackballed himself by sort of reducing his trade value, I actually think Philly as a destination has gone down, sort of down in NBA players' estimations as a destination to go as well, just purely because how the fans and their reputation has kind of progressed over the last couple of months. They're proper horrible fans, booing their own team and just stuff like that. So I don't see why, if you've got the world at your fingertips, if you're James Harden, you can literally just pick up the phone and say, I want to go here. Why the hell you choose Philly off the court and on the court, like you said, Aidan? It's just not going to happen. So yeah, it's nice to see these kind of things happen and not worry. I remember a couple of seasons ago when us as a Nets team, we'd kind of breed these stars in and sort of would transcend the team, and like we were a sort of a not very good team with a very good one or two players, and you could sort of get a little bit nervous about where they'd end up. But it's nice to be involved in these kind of rumors when you're pretty certain that anywhere that they go is kind of a downgrade. So it's fun to talk about, but he ain't going anywhere. And I don't think any Sixers fans would honestly, hand on heart, say that they believe anything when it comes to those rumors. But, it's nice to talk about. It fills some column inches, doesn't it? But talking of returns and players that have been bandied around trade rumors, friend of the pod, Michael Grady, obviously joined us around this time last year to chat about the Nets. He sat down with Nets co-owner Clara Usai to talk about Kyrie Irving, and she had some very interesting things to say that we're going to chat about, right?
Yeah, she did. And I mean, I don't know if you've got the quote to hand, just like those that aren't aware, but in case you've not, in short, she basically kind of spoke on the conversations her and Kyrie have had, just kind of about life, the kind of charitable work that they both are into. But then the main takeaway from this interview was her hinting at his possible return. Now, I don't know if this is just her saying, yeah, really looking forward to him getting back, and we're maybe blowing this completely out of proportion and thinking it's a hint that he's going to be back next week. Ultimately, I'm kind of lost for words here, trying to think, because we've discussed Kyrie's kind of absence, potential returns to the death, but you can't help but get excited when the co-owner of the team is going, yeah, can't wait for him to return. Like that's surely something's in the water. You don't just drop that in an interview when you're in a position such as that. It's not just a player saying, yeah, it'd be great if he comes back. This is, yeah, we're looking forward to his return. So it suggests to me that the Nets know something, and so Kyrie's been very active on social media again lately, lots of spiritual posts. I don't know what you could maybe kind of umbrella them under, but lots of posts that I think have went over the heads of a lot of people, but clearly mean something to Kyrie, and whether there's some meaning behind these, and it is this is me returning. Obviously, we can only wait and see. But yeah, some mental news, and finally a bit of an update that's maybe a bit more firmer than those that we've had recently for Kyrie.
See, I'm seeing it as another similar quote to what we've heard from Joe Tsai, Sean Marks, Steve Nash, Kevin Durant. Everyone's looking forward to having Kyrie rejoin the team. He's still their friend, he's still their teammate, he's still their colleague, employee, whatever you want. But I still feel that we're no further on than we were in the situation 2 months ago, and that's me looking at it as negative as possible. Because I'm a Nets fan like everyone else, and I obviously get excited when you do see Kyrie mentioned, and when you do get officials saying something like that. But you just want facts. You want facts. You want straight, hard facts. And it just always seems to be hypotheticals. And you just get fed up of it after a while. And I think the last time I got excited about the potential Kyrie return was obviously the whole thing with the New York mayor changing. And it felt like there was a kind of hope there that the mandate was going to change. Then the new mayor comes in, is about to come in and then says, no, that's not what I meant at all. It's typical politics at the end of the day.
Bastard, yeah.
Exactly. It's, of course, you're going to get, they say the Nets have no fans, but they would have certainly got a few votes with those conversations in my eyes. And at the end of the day, we all miss seeing Kyrie play basketball, but I've lost my patience in it now, and you just want some action. And Kyrie isn't going to get vaccinated now, and if someone still believes that that's going to happen, then I think you're wishing that, and you're not thinking it's going to happen. It's just not going to happen. I think now we look at it, if we're in the same situation a couple of months' time, Kyrie's obviously still not in the court. He's due a new contract in the summer. Do the Nets offer him a max? I don't think so. Does Kyrie sign a max with the Nets after this when they've decided that he's not even allowed to play in away games? I don't think he will either. And I'm at the stage now where I'd rather see some action. And if it does take a trade, then so be it. If we can bring in 2 solid role-playing starters or some young talent, a pick or two, then I'd rather see that. Because personally, I know I said I'm not too concerned about it, but I am more concerned about Harden's long-term future with the Nets than I am Kyrie's at the moment. Because I think it's more important to get Harden as comfortable as possible with his decision to re-sign with the Nets. And that's going to take us playing well this year and having as much talent there as possible. So I'd love to see Kyrie back as much as the next person, but I'm at the stage now where I don't think he'll ever play for the Nets again. And I just think if that's going to be the case, then we need to do something about it.
That's big. Yeah, when you say it out loud, it's like, it gets a bit more real, doesn't it? Like saying, yeah, he probably will never suit. I remember thinking about that when the whole Spencer Dinwiddie stuff went on last season, and it was just like, we're never going to see him again. It's just like, it just felt a bit weird when that actually finally dawned on you. But then the way I'm trying to sort of make myself feel better, because like you guys, I'm a huge Kyrie Irving fan, but I'm getting used to the fact that he ain't coming back, man. Like, he's too principled to go get vaccinated, having to wait on New York State's vaccine mandate to justify whether or not a player you're spending, $30-odd million a year to not play and take up a roster spot is just bad business. So, with a heavy heart, it's almost best for business that we do move on from him. But the way I'm trying to trick my brain into thinking that's exciting is we've got KD locked up. We've got Harden basically locked up. It's all just a bit of a nudge and a wink into when it will happen. But then we've almost got another near max slot to join this team. So I'm just trying to think, like, who is like around for next year that we could, offer a max to. And I need to do a proper bit of digging, but it could be someone pretty decent. No one's really coming to mind at the moment, but if we've got the cap room, well, obviously we're over the cap, but if we've got the money committed almost to spend on a near max player or 2 very, very good players, then obviously we're off and running. But yeah, I think to go back to the Clara Wusai interview, it's like, yeah, I'm very much with you guys in that she's just saying she's obviously incredibly well versed in interviews, and everything that she says is meticulously thought through. And yeah, I think it's just they're saying things to be optimistic and to be political. But yeah, time will tell, but we shall see. One last bit of Nets news that we're going to get onto that is a little bit happier than the last segment is we've had a bit of an update on the availability of a certain Mr. Nicholas Claxton. Cammy, what do you make of that?
Delighted. Obviously, we're all big fans of Clax. This was supposed to be the breakout season after the kind of promise he showed last season, but much like the kind of his whole time at the Nets, it's been just kind of filled with bad luck. Obviously, the injuries initially, and then injuries again last season kept him out for a while. Now a mysterious illness, which is described as non-COVID, and it's quite worrying when you read what he'd said, like how he'd lost a lot of weight. He's now put that weight on, but there was a photo of him when I think this interview was actually taking place. He looks different. And I think we early on had kind of noticed that he'd put on a bit of muscle. That was something we'd all wanted to see from him if he was going to be a big centre and really do a job on some guys. He's a great defender, but sometimes like that bit of muscle, yet he seemed to have maybe not quite a Giannis, like rookie to Giannis now kind of development muscle-wise, but he did seem to have a bit more muscle to him. And it was one of those, he is going to really kick on this year, but we've barely seen him. And yeah, it's another kind of frustrating one. We waited ages for news, and I think it's still a few more weeks till we see him. I think a few weeks ago we were discussing, should we be worried? Now we've got a bit of an update. I'm feeling a little bit more confident, but then if we're still 2-3 weeks down the line, he's still not back, then that's maybe when we get worried. But obviously it's fantastic news. We're all Clax fans here, and hopefully we can see him back on the court as soon as.
Yeah, just glad to hear he's feeling better, because he's been looking miserable since the start of the season. I think a lot of that's probably down to the health issues that he's had. We saw him last year obviously have some health issues as well when he had COVID after that trip to Miami, where they were again quite quiet about it, and then eventually released the news that he was suffering from COVID at the time. So it's a shame, because guys like that shouldn't be missing time at this stage in their career. This is when they're putting in reps every game, every night, and they're playing and they're just getting better and better. But as I think Cammy mentioned it last week, we're just waiting for Clax to take that leap. I think everyone's waiting for him to take that leap, that he should be maybe going to a most improved level. But yeah, we've just missed having Clax as an option at the 5, and he's not been playing well this year when he has been in. I think he's been a bit of a disappointment. But in terms of having him as an option defensively and offensively, it is a huge miss. I mean, you've just got to look at James Harden at the point. James Harden will get you 10 assists on any night, but when he's got a rim runner, like obviously had with Clint Capella and even DeAndre Jordan to a certain extent, who can just play off the pick and roll and get dunks, that's when James Harden's assists just go up and up. And we don't have a guy like that at the moment, because Blake doesn't do that. Obviously, he's kind of lost his hops a bit. And LaMarcus Aldridge, he's just really not that type of center. He's never going to be a rim runner. He's just a straight up shooter. So I just want him to come back in and do that job. And again, defensively, just that when the Nets do that mega switchy defense that we've seen so often in the last couple of years, especially in that Warriors game the other night, we saw Blake Griffin get caught up time and time again, and then getting switched on to Steph, and Steph just puts you on an island. And when you've got an option like a guy like Nick Claxton, who can defend from 1 to 5, it changes your defense. And obviously we have been better defensively this year, but we could be even better by having an option like that. So just excited to see him get back in, and I just want to see him excel. And I can understand how frustrated he's probably been, but once he gets back in the court, it's just time to take that leap, take out every opportunity that he gets, because he won't be on the minutes that he's probably expecting, but he can definitely earn them. And I think we know he's got the talent. It's just about putting in those performances on the court. So this is a great update, probably quicker than I expected to see him back, to be honest. So we might even see him back as soon as this week. So looking forward to it.
Will be good. Yeah, I'm expecting him to get a bit of time in Long Island before we see him don the black and white. But weirdly enough, I'm actually more excited about him coming back, like when he played badly, than if he was playing really well and he was coming back in a weird kind of way. Because as you guys said, obviously he started the first 3 games of the season, and we were all like, Claxton's not looking great. So that almost makes me want him to come back and, like you said, and put in those reps and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, hopefully he'll come back soon and he'll be able to get back in game shape. Obviously, now, having LaMarcus Aldridge go away and come back again, the most important thing is that he's all right and, he's healthy and all that kind of good stuff. But yeah, for his sake and for the sake of his game and his career and all that kind of stuff, I hope, he comes back soon and he is healthy. And we get just more of a sense of what this illness is like. We know it's not COVID, but then that opens, the rest of every other illness ever. So it'd be good, nice to see, just for a bit of clarity. But yeah, fingers crossed he comes back soon. But the time has now come to go back and look at the games that have been played since we last came across the airwaves. Starting with a return to the Barclays from the road trip that we went on. Then it was back down to earth with a bit of a bump where on Wednesday, the 17th of November, we welcomed the Golden State Warriors to the Barclays Center and we got absolutely battered. It ended 117-99 to the Warriors, and Aiden, the star of the show, the man getting the MVP chance in Barclays, was a certain Mr. Steph Curry.
Yeah, I mean, you can get annoyed about performances like this, but like many of our opponents this year that they've had to do is just, with Kevin Durant, that is, sometimes you just need to sit back and appreciate the greatness and just move on and realize that it happens. I mean, Steph Curry was unplayable. I think that's the only word that you can say for Steph. And he's been unplayable for the majority of the season for most teams that he's played against. When he is shooting like that, there's very little you can do. I mean, he had 37 points, 9 threes. But, I mean, I would love to know how many of those threes were, like, near the logo, because he's just a cheat code when he's in that type of form. Just because when he's got that range, you just can't defend it at times. I mean, you can try as best as you want, but you really don't want guys like James Harden, if he's defending them, being right up in his face at the logo and then opening up all that space for Curry to make a pass. Because let's think about it, he is a brilliant passer as well. It was just a masterclass. And you saw, I think the best way to sum it up is when he nailed that kind of one-legged three-pointer off the one leg, and KD and James Harden were just sitting on the bench, and they were just sitting there like that. Because they know. We've had it, obviously, with Kevin Durant, where he's had nights where he's just been absolutely incredible. And teams can't do anything about it. It doesn't matter who you put on him. It doesn't matter how many guys you put on him. They're just going to score. And there's not many people in the league like that. I mean, you can get annoyed against the Giannis's of the world if you're not defending him well enough. And you go, oh, how's he getting 40 points against you? But guys like Steph, there's so little you can do that I really didn't get that annoyed after this one. Personally, I don't know about you guys, but see the Warriors, I just don't see how they beat this Nets team still 4 times out of 7. But I still see them as being the team that makes it all the way to the finals in the West, because I don't see any other team beating them in the playoffs. And if you just think they're still to add Klay Thompson, they're still to add James Wiseman, once they're back in the mix, you've got to see them as the Nets' biggest obstacle to win it all this year. And if Steph doesn't kind of lose that form that he's in right now, it's going to be an incredible series if it does happen. So, yeah, we can take this one on the chin and say it was just an unplayable night from Steph Curry, but I'm not too concerned.
Nice.
So I'm going to talk about something maybe a bit more positive. Well,
we got to find him somewhere.
Anyway.
We got to find him somewhere.
I mean, as you said, Matt, we got absolutely battered in this one, but this was a good opportunity for the kind of young guns, our prospects, to get a bit of a chance to shine again. Cam Thomas got 15 minutes, Kessler Edwards and Daron Sharp both got 9 minutes each. And yes, the minutes kind of largely came in garbage time in that fourth quarter when we were well beaten. But it was just nice to see these guys back out on the court again. Granted, some performed a bit better than others. Cam Thomas, who would go on to have a 46-point performance in the G League a few days later, didn't really do too much in his 15 minutes on the court. Kessler Edwards got 8 points. Sharp got 4. And yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to really be positive and think of the best ways of making this defeat any way kind of better. Like Ian says, Steph Curry was absolutely phenomenal, and it was one of those things. Like he says, we have those nights as well where Harden or KD goes off, and other teams' fans will be going, "Yeah, you can't do anything about that." But just want to kind of give props to Nash and the coaching staff for actually just letting these guys play, rather than doing something silly and having Harden and KD playing extended minutes when we're well beaten. Let these guys go out in pretty much a pressure-free environment. Of course, there's always pressure. It's the NBA, the best league in the world for basketball. But when you're getting well beaten, it gives you a chance to test yourself against some of the best players in the league. And yeah, not that I want to see us get gubbed in quite similar fashion again anytime soon. But if we are, I hope the coaching staff can kind of follow this again and let these guys get some reps in, because when we're doing well, I can't really see much time for them on the court. We always said we wanted to see more Cam Thomas, and his G League performances certainly would suggest he deserves more time. But yeah, there just doesn't seem to be that time when we're doing really well and things are kind of on tune.
Yeah, just as an aside, if you haven't seen that Cam Thomas sort of extended highlights from him dropping 40 odd, like get that man out of the G League, man. He's incredibly good. But yeah, I think this was the first game we had played without Joe Harris, who's obviously gone down with that rolled ankle. But I think at the time of recording, I think the Warriors are number one in defense and number one in offense, and they got the best record in the league as well. So, you're going up against the best of the best when you are short, coming off a bit of a grueling road series. But just illustrated, how good their wing defense is, and missing a shooter like Joe Harris. The Nets went 10 for 36 from three against the Warriors, which is good for 27.8%, when we're normally up near 44%. From three. So KD only going 2 of 6, Patty Mills going 2 of 5, James Harden going 2 of 6, Blake going 0 of 2, Javon Carter going 1 of 4. When shooters aren't hitting their shots, it just means the lane is just incredibly clogged. Defenders not being able to sag off their wing assignments, and they just collapse into the paint, making life a lot harder for KD. And unfortunately, his streak of 14 straight 20-plus point games came to an end. He's still the fourth best streak in Nets franchise history, and I think those records are going to continue to tumble. But yeah, I think as incredible as Steph Curry undoubtedly was, I think they're a very good defensive team. And as you say, when you've got the likes of Wiseman coming back and Klay Thompson on the offensive end, then yeah, we may see him down the road, let's just say, in the off season. But yeah, it was a horrible game to watch. So fortunately, we were able to come back, and after that game, we had a pretty comfortable win on Thursday morning, 12:30 UK time. We took on the Cleveland Cavaliers and took the win 109-99. Who wants to start this one off?
I'll start this one and get the kind of negative out the way. And that is, once again, the Nets took the foot off the gas when a game looked pretty much in hand and over and done with. We went into the half leading by 21 points. And to me, that shouldn't possibly be under threat at all yet. In the third quarter, as we've seen multiple times this season, we did take that foot off the gas a little, and whilst the lead wasn't really threatened, I think the lowest it went down to in the third was 9, and in the fourth quarter it was 7. We did weather the storm, but this was a game where we really should have just seen it out. This was probably a really good opportunity to let kind of Cam Thomas, Kessler Edwards, Daron Sharpen get extended minutes when we were 21 points up. They did get some minutes, and ultimately, with things going a bit pear-shaped for us, we had to bring KD and Harden back in the fourth quarter, which really, really shouldn't be happening. Thankfully, like I say, we weathered that storm and got the W in the end, but we're seeing this far too often. There was a stat going around on Twitter about the Nets kind of net rating in quarters and how the third and fourth quarters are quite bad in comparison to the first two. And this was the perfect kind of example of that in this game. So good in the first two quarters. The Cavs yes, they were very depleted. They lacked every centre, no Jarrett Allen, Markkinen. It should have been so much easier and so much clearer, yet we made it a bit more difficult for us, only winning it by 10. But thankfully, it was back to winning ways after being blown out ourselves. I think that was the main thing, getting back to winning ways, even if there was that negative of that third quarter.
Yeah, 100%. I just wanted to give a bit of respect to Patty Mills. I just think since he's came into the starting unit, he's just excelled. And it's just one of those things at the moment when one of our starters goes down, there's always that kind of call of duty to who's going to step up. And I've been really impressed with how he's managed to come in since Joe's been out the lineup. And you tend to expect maybe a slight dip in percentages for someone who comes into the starters after playing with the bench. It's just basically down to playing against better players. But he really hasn't had that dip. And in this one, he had 21 points, shooting 50% from the field, including 6 from 12 from 3. So 50% from there as well. And he just plays differently from Joe. And it's quite nice to have that as a different option instead of maybe last year where we had Landry Shamet, who was almost like for like, but a slightly poorer shooter than Joe Harris. But Patty Mills is just a different type of player. He's much quicker. He's much more creative in the way he gets his looks from 3. You can kind of tell early on in the possession where Joe Harris is going to take his shot. Whereas Patty Mills, you can never really tell just because of how quick he is and how much he moves. I'd probably be tempted to keep him with the starters if it wasn't for the fact that he's such a good creator as well. And Joe could potentially run with the bench, and you may see that time where Joe can get any of those issues that he's potentially had out of his system while he's shooting against poorer players. But the fact that Patty Mills is such a good creator as well, and he's created such a nice partnership with LaMarcus Aldridge, it would be silly to take him off the bench. And the type of skill set he has, it's just so complimentary of having that sixth man role. I'm always tempted to call him the sixth man, but I think LaMarcus Aldridge, we've got a sixth and seventh man. So we are blessed in having those two guys off the bench. But if we can take anything from Patty Mills over these last few games, I certainly think we're going to see him more in the closing unit over Joe Harris. I think there might be times where Joe is on the bench at the end and Patty's coming into the team. I think there's definitely going to be scenarios where that's going to be beneficial. So lovely to see him excel, and I think we can firmly say that he's exceeded our expectations when we brought him in, and he's an absolute steal at that mid-level exception. So yeah, chuffed to bits to have him on the Nets.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've said it, or at least I've said it every week of the season. It's just like he's just so quick. You just can't. He doesn't stop running. He's just a blur all around, and he can get his shot off while seemingly still run into his spot. It's like it all happens so quickly. He's like Speedy Gonzalez. But yeah, talking about new additions and acclimatizing and being an absolute steal, I just wanted to give flowers to LaMarcus Aldridge. In a game that was runnier than ice cream on a hot day, it was nice to have LaMarcus Aldridge come in off the bench and just calm things down and shore things up against what was a depleted Cavs team. Obviously, no Jarrett Allen in this game. Always nice to see Jarrett Allen, but perhaps when he's playing against you, it's nice when he's not actually playing because he's having an incredible season so far. But as you guys have touched on, the Nets saw a 21-point lead go down to an 8-point lead going into that fourth quarter, and up-stepped LaMarcus Aldridge. He finished the game with 24 points on 11 of 19 shooting, but 19 of those points came in the fourth quarter. He had a couple of dunks. James Harden found him in his in that mid-range spot that he's got that he absolutely loves. I think between him and KD and a little bit of Harden, I think we've got to be the most efficient mid-range team ever assembled, I think, because we're absolutely mustard from kind of 15 foot out. But yeah, it was just really nice. He obviously had 7 rebounds, 2 assists as well to finish off the game. But yeah, it was just the LaMarcus Aldridge sort of train continues. And I don't know if it's, a shout for sixth man of the year or something. But he's incredibly good and a steal. So I just wanted to show some love to LaMarcus Aldridge in this one. Also in this game, KD passed Steve Nash for 26th all-time on NBA's list of three-pointers made, which I thought was a nice little nugget of information there as well, which is kind of cool. And then the final game that we're going to round up on was the closer than it should have been game against the Orlando Magic. So this was Saturday morning for us UK guys, where the Nets beat the Magic 120-115. And this was the return this was almost James Harden's coming out party, right?
Yeah, I mean, with Kevin Durant out, there was a bit of a buzz on Twitter that we were going to see the return of Houston Harden, who we obviously saw quite a few times last year when Kyrie and KD were both out, just as he signed for the Nets, and he was obviously getting plenty of MVP shouts at that time. And we did see the return of Houston Harden to an extent. 36 points, 10 rebounds, 8 assists, 3 steals, 2 blocks in 41 minutes. I mean, that was probably an average night for James and Houston, and especially considering that 19 points came from the free throw line. He got to the line 20 times against the Magic, which is hopefully a clear signal that the referees have finally stopped looking the other way anytime he's fouled. And I was watching a brilliant compilation of all the times he was fouled during this game, which was floating around Twitter after, because there were so many people saying that, Harden gets all the calls he wants. He gets all the calls he wants. But I just recommend anyone going on and searching for that video, because it does just show how excellent he is at drawing fouls, which are actually fouls. He's just got such a knack of knowing when that defender's going to stick his hand out. And it's not one of these stupid ones where you get players like Trae Young who back up into the defender and get fouls that way. He actually gets fouls which are fouls. So he done that all the time in Houston, and it's not the prettiest of games, and this certainly wasn't the prettiest of games from James Harden. His shooting numbers were very, very low, but he does get the job done, and it's certainly not to everyone's taste, and I'm sure there's probably some Nets fans out there that don't enjoy watching it, but personally, if you can put up numbers like that, I really couldn't care less how he gets those points, if it's at the free throw line or if he's shooting 50, 40, 90. So on a night where we didn't have Kevin Durant, it was really important that he did step up and give us one of these performances. And yeah, as I say, we don't care how he does it as long as he gets it done. And he certainly did. So happy to see Harden putting up numbers like that again. But most importantly, nice to see him playing 41 minutes, because coming off of the injury that he had last year, we were all a bit nervous that he was going to take a big knock in his minutes this year. And to play 41 minutes, I think that's probably the stat that you can be most happiest with.
Yeah, I think that's certainly true, Aidan. And you're saying about Harden obviously kind of stepping up in KD's absence. We've said so many times when either Harden or KD eventually rest, KD missed this one through injury. We always needed guys to stand up. And I think if at the start of the week you said James Johnson was going to be that man, I would have said Harden to the Sixers was more likely. Where on earth did this performance come from? I mean, Johnson, it would be fair to say, has had a rather forgettable time in Brooklyn. 8 DNPs in their 17 games thus far this season. Hasn't really done an awful lot. Played the most minutes he has this season with 25, and certainly repaid that faith shown in him by the coaching staff for... I mean, I don't really know what he'd done to earn it. Earlier on in the week, I think he'd got the 9 rebounds, but no points. But for a big guy, you're kind of expecting that anyway. But then to come out in his 25 minutes, he had 17 points, 10 rebounds, and 4 assists as well. I mean, you'll take that all day, and I think Johnson will be absolutely delighted to kind of get that monkey off his back and have that kind of first performance. He was one of those guys, I think, when he came in, we were like, yeah, he might be one of the kind of last roster guys that just gets kind of chucked and waved and whatever. Ultimately, that ended up being Okafor, and Demboya obviously got waved as well. But yeah, let's just hope this is a sign of things to come from Johnson, and maybe better things to come. Like I say, not really done anything of note in his time in Brooklyn thus far. Kind of came in as just this guy, really, who was a big bruiser, just came in to kind of bully folk and look after the team, be a bit of an enforcer, but came in 17 points, and I think considering we were without KD, Johnson's 17 points ultimately helped us to that win. So yeah, long may that continue, and hopefully it's not the last time we see a good performance from Johnson or kind of these other guys near the end of the bench. It's nice to see them step up.
Yeah, nice. I think I'm starting to think maybe we're sort of painting James Johnson as just an enforcer was almost doing him a bit of disservice off the back of this performance. But, seeing Isaiah Stewart and LeBron James go at it recently, that would not have happened against the Nets because James Johnson would have just put him on his back, I'm pretty sure. But I digress. Nice to get back in the W column. Although it was, again, tighter than it probably should have been or could have been. Down 19 at the half to what is probably the most tragic team in the league. Bit of a head scratcher. Even though no KD and still no Joe, shouldn't have been this close. But again, my notes are just packed full of excuses. Road trip, straight into a back-to-back against the best team in the league. It's been a bit of a brutal stretch. But again, I'm not trying to go too deep into it. Thankfully, the refs have remembered what a foul looks like on James Harden. He's finally getting those foul calls, as you guys have said. But yeah, it was a nice veteran leadership group of Harden, Mills, and again, that man, LaMarcus Aldridge, combined for 73 points, plus James Johnson's 17, as you say, Cammy. It was just a nice win in the end. Again, a frustrating one, but I think it's just one of those. You're going to get those kind of runny nights, as I say. But yeah, that is it for the games from last week. As I say, we are recording this about 2 hours before the tip-off of the less than that, an hour and 10 minutes before the Cavs game, which is scheduled to kick off soon. After that, we go to Boston to take on the Celtics. And after that, we are welcoming the Suns to the Clees. Obviously, we are doing the BK2K Pick'em this season. We're keeping a running total. Each of us is going to guess the wins and losses for each week. After every game you get right, you get a point. As it stands, I'm currently on 12. Aiden is edging ahead in 4th with Cammy just behind in 11th. Gentlemen, how do you see this week going?
Mark, that's going to confuse so many people.
I know, isn't it?
The fact I think you've just realised as well. Shall we try that again?
Fuck knows. I'm just going to calm the fuck down, I think. Right, let's try that again, shall we? So, we are recording just before the Cavs game, which kicks off in about an hour or so. After that, we head to Boston to take on the Celtics before we welcome the Phoenix Suns, who are red hot, to the Barclays Center. Gents, how do you see this week going with those 3 games?
This week, I think it's going to be another tough one. Tough to an extent, kind of similar to this one, just kind of in reverse. We've got the 2 easier games, if you like, at the start, then the kind of harder one at the end, with the Suns currently sitting in 2nd in the West. The Cavs should be a team we beat, no bother. We've just beaten them. With a bit of luck, we've learnt our lessons from the game we just played against them and can kind of see out a blowout win in this one. The Celtics, I think they're 8th or 9th in the East at the moment. They could, provided we finish first, end up being the guys we face in the first round of the playoffs. So, I mean, I don't think they will finish there. They've got far too many good players to kind of be that 8th seed. But you can only play kind of where teams ultimately end up. And if that's where they end up, well, hopefully we can beat them over 4 games, which I think we would. They're not doing as well as I think many expected them to this season. So I'd like to think we can beat them. Then the Suns, like I say, they're doing really well again this season. That's going to be a tough one, but we're then back at home again after a road trip. So with a bit of luck, we can kind of end the week on a high note and go 3 for 3. But I'm going to play it safe, and I'm going to say we'll go 2-1 this week and lose to the Suns.
Yeah, I'm going to say 2-1 as well. Slightly different, though. I'm looking forward to this week, first and foremost. I think it's going to be a good run of games where we're playing against teams that are there or thereabouts. We're not playing against the Magics of the world where you just expect us to demolish them, as after all they are tanking already. But it's going to be an interesting one. I think a lot of it's going to depend on obviously players that we get back. I think we'll see probably Joe Harris in the Suns game. I don't think he'll play in the road trip, but I think he's due to come back on Sunday from the tea leaves that I've been reading. And as I mentioned earlier, hopefully Klatz comes back at some point. And obviously we've got Bruce Brown out tonight with hamstring tightness, which is the word that no one wants to read in our injury reports. So hopefully that's a quick recovery and they don't rush him back. But you have to think that that's maybe a one-game injury, and he should be back for that Celtics game. But obviously this Cavs game is going to be slightly different. They were obviously very undermanned when we saw them last time. Jarrett Allen's going to be back in. I was excited to see him last time. We didn't get to see him. He didn't get his Barclays homecoming. But definitely excited to watch him play. They've lost Colin Sexton as well, which is for the season, which is a bitter blow for them, especially when they're pushing for the playoffs. So I do expect the Nets to win this one. But yeah, it should be quite a fun game. The one that I've got us dropping this week is the Boston game. I think that's going to be a tough game. I actually expect the Nets to struggle, and I don't really have a reason why, but it just feels like one of those games that we're going to lose it. They've obviously just got Jaylen Brown back. I think he's due to come back tonight. And guys like Al Horford and Dennis Schroeder are guys that have killed us a lot of times in the past. And add that with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, I do expect the Nets to struggle in this one, especially if we are missing a few guys. And then obviously the final game against the Suns, Cammy's hit the nail on the head. It is going to be a tough one. If you just need to look at their record at the moment. They're on a 12-game winning streak, which if you think about it, it means that they started poor in the first couple of games and they've just been winning ever since. And I think they're the only team at the moment that's unbeaten against Eastern Conference teams, which is another interesting fact. But the Nets they've killed streaks like that many a time, and I expect the Nets to do that again. I think we went 2-0 against them last year, and I expect that to continue. It's just one of those formulas that doesn't seem to work against the Nets, and we tend to seem to beat them in a game of chess. So yeah, we'll go 2-1 and we'll drop the Boston game. So at least we're different. So we'll wait and see what Matt says.
Nice. I'm gonna. That's very, very interesting. First and foremost, yeah, I think Jarrett Allen coming back into this Cavs team is pretty bad news. As I alluded to while we sort of summed up the Cavs game from this week, he's looking good, man. He's hitting threes and things now. Obviously, we know what a threat he is. Sort of on the defensive end, blocking shots. He's incredibly good as a roller. So, that's one of the areas where this Nets team are weak. I still think we've got enough to get past the Cavs, even though it's away from home. That obviously works in their favor, but I still think we're going to have enough in the tank. Fingers crossed that sort of turns out to be true. The Celtics, I'm a bit 50-50 off. I could go either way. Again, like you say, we should, looking at their record, we should be beating them. But as you guys kind of said, it's the Celtics, so you never quite know. They always sometimes pull it out. So just for the I'm still undecided on that one. And then with the Suns, as you say, they're just on an incredibly good run of form, and you can't really count against that. And if you look at the teams we've beaten the all right teams. We're struggling. Yeah, obviously we struggled against the Warriors, which I know are a different team, but we're struggling against the good teams this year, which I remember in years past, we sort of weirdly do all right against the good teams and then we'd lose against Orlando. So it's really all up to play for. But for the sake of being dramatic, I'm going to say we're going to beat the Cavs, but then we're going to take 2 big fat L's. So the Celtics are going to shock us and the Suns are not going to shock anyone and they're just going to keep it rolling. But we shall see. We are doing a season-long pick'em, and we're keeping a score of who's got the best sort of psychic ability. Aiden is currently ahead with 14 correct, answers, followed by myself with 12, with Cammy just behind on 11. So we'll see what happens after this slit again this week. This is nearly all we got time for, but we do have one listener question. Thanks to Sam from the Discord for coming through on this one. Really getting into the nitty gritty of the season so far. But he says, off the back of the Jazz Kings game, if you threw up courtside, would you help clear it up, or would you just sit there brazenly watching others do it for you? Did you guys see this, and what did you make of it?
I'll take this one and out myself immediately. I've been in some states at the football, and it's not nice. And if anything, I was surprised at the lack of just kind of sympathy for the guy. I'm presuming he had too much to drink, but you don't know that. And the fact that every player on the court's practically laughing at him, I kind of felt quite bad for him. It almost felt disrespectful. I know he's sitting front row seats, he's paid a lot of money, and he's just sitting there heaving his guts out while smoking. And the commentator's going, "Oh yeah, is it a drink spill? Is it a drink spill?" As you see him spewing all over the court. But I mean, yeah, the NBA, that's the NBA for you. I mean, yeah, it's one of those things you'd want to help, but then he looked in a bad way, and yeah, just I hope he's all right, because I mean, yeah, doing that on national telly as well, that moment's going to be forever kind of linked to you. It's always going to be brought out whenever the Kings do something bad, that's going to get memed. It's going to be a kind of timeless thing now. And I mean, if you don't laugh, you'll cry. So I hope he's all right. And just, yeah, it's one of those things. Sometimes things just happen, and yeah,
that's the only saving grace for him, is that no one watches Kings games anyway. So he would have seen that. So, but no, it's certainly going to make its way around the internet, that one. And yeah, I do feel sorry for him. And I think if I was in that situation, I don't care if I pay for courtside seats, I'd be straight away like, I'd be thinking I need to get out of here as soon as possible, because all cameras are going to be on me, and they're going to have to stop the game. And there can't be much more embarrassing things than sitting courtside at a basketball game and having to stop the game because of you. I just think that I'd be cringing. I'd be straight out of there. So yeah, someone else would have to clean it up, but I certainly would be sitting there brazenly like watching it. But I admire him for the fact that he's thought, I've paid for these seats, I'm gonna sit here, and I'm not minute. It's like, because he clearly must have felt sick like leading up to that moment, and he's not thought, I need to go to the bathroom. He's thought, no, I'm staying here and I'm not missing a minute of this game. So I have a admiration for that, but at the same time, I was just cringing at every second, like Cammy was saying, when the players were laughing and things. So yeah, hope he's doing okay, but I think he seems like the type of character where he's going to brush this one off and he'll be courtside again soon.
Yeah, I think I've seen him dubbed Puke Walton on the internet, so maybe that's going to be forever his name, and that'll follow him round. But yeah, I think hand on heart, we've all been there, and we've had a little bit too much to drink, and we white you a little bit and stuff like that. But yeah, to have that immortalized on not national TV, because as you quite rightly say, it was a Kings game, so no one's really watching, but on League Pass for the whole world to see. And yeah, but it's just, you see it, he pukes, it hits the floor, a little bit gets on his belly when he's walking out. It's just like from leaving the house to go, I'm sitting courtside at an NBA game. Life is good, to stumbling out of the arena before the game's finished because you've had one too many Coors Lights or whatever they drink over there. It's just, what a fall from grace. What a roller coaster of emotion. But yeah, I'd like to think, even after I've had a couple, I still turn into sort of the party dad. And I'm a bit like, oh, I'm so sorry. Let me get a mop and stuff like that. I'd like to think I would have helped clean up. But yeah, he was, as you quite rightly say, he was just sat there going, nope, sorry. But yeah. And those poor guys, shout out to the King's staff who just threw down about 24 towels to sort of clear it up. But yeah, they say, don't they? Anything can happen in the NBA, and they were quite right. But yeah, what a note to leave it on. But that's all we got time for today. Thanks as ever to Aidan and Cami, and for all of you guys for listening and watching along with us. If you like what we do, then please like, rate, review the podcast, subscribe to us on YouTube and Twitch, share the episode on social media, grab yourself some merch by following the link in our Twitter bio, and we shall see you guys next week. Thanks for listening.